Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. But for this one we get a little bit more news because a lot of stuff is happening, a lot of pieces on the board are moving. So maybe we'll start with this. Here is the agency. At the moment the Crimson Harvest is going on, so you can still hunt for those sites and get some pretty cool and unique rewards. I myself haven't taken part in that. There's also Crimson Harvest Proving Grounds that's happening, so for those that want some PvP action, that's that option. What I'm personally really interested in is these faction campaigns, so we'll actually click through on this one and take a look at it because a scope video also dropped, and while on the Galente Caldari front everything is going really swimmingly for the Caldari, who have won the research race as well, so it looks like the Caldari will probably be unlocking some maybe large ships before the Galente or anyone else. And the story, to my surprise a little bit, is that in the Amarr Minotaur system everything is going to pot. Everything is really not working out as people planned. First of all, the race is far closer, so you can see that the Amarr haven't completely finished their progress, and the Minotaur are catching up quite a lot, so it's a very close race and a nice fight, you could say. But now the scope video actually mentioned that the use of this transmuter by the Amarr faction in the Turner system is destabilizing that star, and on November 2nd something should happen there. So will the Triglavians find their way in here? I personally don't think so, but I think they are running from another enemy, and that's what could happen there. So very cool. I'm definitely gonna try to get a jump clone into that system without implants, get into a cloaky ship and try to keep an eye on that. But yeah, definitely take a look at that scope video, and if you can, make arrangements to get into the Turner system at the time that was mentioned there, because it looks pretty cool. I think it was 1700 EVE time on November 2nd. So lots of stuff happening here, and then actually we'll go back to home and we'll take a look. What was the final bit that's mentioned here? Can I just... whoops. Thought I'd selected a faction already, but alright. Let's go, so we can click on this one. Not too easy to click on it, but the final one is the corporation dashboard. Alright, I'm already in a corporation, but that's a nice segue as well to something else I wanted to mention. You may have seen it already, but there was a mass test on CC for the new heraldry system. Worked pretty well from my standpoint, so alliance logos and corporation logos are the first ones to get in, and the way it changes is basically in your fitting window you'll get a second tab that is for both the skins, so personalization I think it's called, for both the skins and then the heraldry emblems, and just click on those, and then somewhere on your ship, if you have all the right rights of course that you've bought from the new corporation, you'll see your alliance logo and your corporation logo. And of course for me it's very cool because it's a unique logo that's the same as my YouTube channel, that is then shown in game and potentially soon also on ships. So very cool stuff happening there. And then it's way too much to go through on this intro, but a lot of balancing changes. And now I just went over to the subreddit, a lot of potential changes as well for ganking, alpha clones, your ability to change your safety settings, all of that stuff is changing as well. So it does look, honestly starting to look to me like the expansion will bring with it a pretty big bang, a lot of changes to the game, and it's starting to me to feel like this will be an expansion. There will be stuff to look forward to, whether it's the faction warfare things, whether it's the new ships, whether it's your heraldry, rather difficult to pronounce for someone like myself from Belgium, but yeah, which is what I'm probably going for. I want to have those logos on a lot of my ships, Orca transport ships, some of my most used combat ships and things like that. Huge rebalancing, Munin nerfed into the ground from what I can tell, so there's a lot of changes, a lot to digest. Definitely take a look on the EVE Online website for everything that CCP announces. If you want some spoilers, go to the subreddit, a lot is being discovered there as well. As always, we also take a quick look at the New Eden store. So let's see what's happening here. I don't expect a lot to be happening here. So we get the packages, but nothing is on sale. We don't have anything front and center anymore for the skins either. And on the services tab, I'm not noticing any sales tag. So it's just the bundle discounts that are, of course, available at all times. All right, let's move on to the market then. I'm curious, I think there will be an impact from everything that's being discovered, especially on the Tech 2 ships. But of course, first we start with pilot services at 520. Like that. All right, let's get going. Here is the chart for plex. So you can see we are still moving up with the maximum going above 5 million from time to time in the last couple of days. So that's definitely worrisome if you're looking for cheaper prices. On the other hand, 5-day moving average is starting to flatten out as well. So I do think that 5 million is a strong barrier that will be difficult for the market to substantially break through. At the moment in GDA itself, we're just below the 5 million for the sellers. Buyers at 4.6 million. Honestly, this also starts to feel like a slight bit of margin that opens up here. Getting slightly closer to that potential 10% that I would usually consider to be a normal healthy margin where you don't really know which way the market is going. So still a little bit of upwards pressure, but I think as we get to that 5 million, it's going to all slow down substantially. Player-owned trade hubs, not that much happening around us. The Tranquility Trading Tower has some sellers just above 5 million, but really the cutting edge is happening in Jeddah, and a couple of buyers coming in though with a slightly more aggressive price range in the Tranquility Trading Tower. Really small volumes though, so I don't think that's all that important. All right, let's move on to the multiple pilot training certificate, and you can see here definitely a different feeling chart and also a different trajectory as well. You can still see that the 5-day moving average is slowly going up for the multiple pilot training certificate. I think it basically still has to do a little bit of a catch up on the plex prices itself. It is a different item, very small volumes, and so we need a little bit more time for this to work out. But you can see that those minimum prices go down to the 1.75 billion on most occasions, so we're still almost 1.9 billion for the sellers and almost 1.8 billion for the buyers, so that there is some upwards pressure here on the buyers to go towards, I think, a more reasonable price compared to plex prices for, let's say, 30 days of training time or something like that. So I'm still seeing some upwards pressure here, but I basically think that it's still catching up to everything that's happening in plex. It's just very slow because it is such a tiny market. The skill extractors should see something, well, similar to plex, but no, even something different. You can see volumes all of a sudden way higher. Must be a CCP intervention. I did not see that. I'm gonna quickly recheck in the New Eden store for those services. Skill extractors. So that's the bundle discount, I think. Yep, 20% for 10 of them, 10% for 5 of them. May have been something on the website. They do, of course, not always do their sales through the New Eden store. There's definitely something happening that is causing a pretty sharp decrease in the price for skill extractors. Supply has gone up quite a lot, and we are now talking still 530 million for the sellers, 484 for the buyers. Slight bit of margin opening up here as well, I think, on new supply from, well, cheaper availability, probably through the website. Then we've got the injector market. Let's take a look at those. Here are the large scale injectors. Basically, they made their way above 900 million for the average price. And I think just like with the 5 million for plex, this is where we're at, but you're starting to see a little bit of hesitation with, for instance, 5-day moving average, a little bit upwards, a little bit downwards. We might be closing in on a top. 900 to 915 million for most sellers, 865 million for the buyers. That's still just 35 million in margin, showing strong demand, and yeah, not a lot of margin. So still the upwards pressure here is actually apparently pretty real. Lots of buyers for large scale injectors. Small scale injectors should not be able to really buck that trend, so they make their way above the 190 on the chart here as well. Starting to see that hesitation too. once we reach that kind of a price point. So I think again a top might be in the works. 187 million for the sellers, so it's above 185 I think, and then the 173 for the buyers. We know that this here has like a little bit of a weird way to show, like a 185 I think is this one. Or yeah, it still shows us 190, but this is the 185 mark or something like that. There's something weird happening with that small scale injector chart, but it's pretty obvious that this one is stalling as well, just like with the large scale injectors. A little bit of hesitation at the current prices. And then the daily alpha injectors are continuing their downward trend. Now again, CCP is here. I think they do apparently have the alpha players back. It took a long time. I mean, they were willing to keep daily alpha injectors at like 70 million for quite a while, but a volume spike like this is also a sale from CCP, and look at how much it is going down. All of a sudden we're back to the 40 million range. 45 million for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers for the daily alpha injectors. For me, this is, I mean, you never know of course in the future, but this is a little bit of confirmation that CCP does keep an eye on the daily alpha injector market and it's trying to keep it decently available for daily alpha players. A goal of 40 million is something completely different than a daily goal for 70 million. And so here is that intervention, which I thought perhaps would not come after, because this run up here was due to a price change from CCP, but we had it here. We touched 50 million, brought us back down below 40. We touched 50 million right here, brought us back down below 40 on another sale. Now we went a little bit crazy, of course, with what happened in May. I think it was with the price changes that were announced. Then we had a special sale here, and then here August everything started to real run up through the summer. But again, CCP comes in, does a sale. We're not able to break 40 million. Buyers are above that at 41, but sellers coming in at 45 million. A pretty hefty sale. And I think rejoicing alpha players that do set this as their daily goal to earn themselves that daily alpha injector and to boost their character skill points with that potential. So I think it's a nice mechanic. I do think it hooks a lot of people, and I also now really believe that CCP will keep a close eye on that. They won't intervene right away. But after, look at that here, a couple of months of really high prices, they did just decide to help the alpha players out for those injectors. And then finally, we've got the hypercores that are, well, countering a little bit to all of that. Well, we're starting to form tops, and the market is hesitating to, demand even more ISK from the game for the pilot services. Hypercores, though, last week up above 500,000 ISK. So either there's a little bit more happening in the Hypernet relay, maybe a little bit more activity. It's a possibility. Volumes are down though, and so this to me feels like perhaps there's a little bit of inflation fear still happening in the game as well. 516,000 to 490,000, really close margin too, showing strong demand even at prices of 500,000 ISK for the hypercores. So still a little bit of a mixed picture, but I think generally plex is the most important metric here, and that is another telltale sign that maybe we are starting to form a top for plex as well. Let's move on to minerals next, coming in at 1325. There we go, and as always we start with HiSec. Here is the titanium chart, very flat, just below 4 ISK. Some volume spikes, you can see this as well here in the last couple of months, that really don't move the needle on the price at all. This to me is an indication that there's plenty of supplies out there, but there's also a decent amount of demand, I think, from the production of larger ships, that is keeping prices somewhat reasonable for HiSec miners. Now, we used to be at 6-7 ISK for titanium. The new reality is that CCP has drastically decreased the amount of titanium needed in a lot of construction, and so we're at around 4 ISK for the sellers, 377 for the buyers. And you can see those big volumes, right? 2 billion, 1.5 billion. Players are able to gather that and to bring that into the market to get their sales going. In fact, I think these lower prices also incentivizes players to hold on to titanium a little bit longer, gather bigger batches, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. All of this is just increasing stability for the titanium market. Still, considering the whole picture, in my opinion, a 390 is not a bad price for titanium. So here I would be willing to do like maybe a 50-50 selling or even a complete selling of my TRIT. I don't expect us to get to a 5, 6, 7 ISK anytime soon. Who knows though what will happen in that faction warfare system next, but let's I don't think CCP is going to mess with resource distribution at this point. Next here we've got pyrite. That's a little bit more worrying. We're clearly currently trading at the low end of the range for pyrite at 870, 885 for most sellers, 850 for the buyers. So that is really on, even on a 1 year chart, you know, 10 ISK is something that should be doable from time to time. So I would hold off on selling a lot of my pyrite, and we get 285 million, 146 million. So we still have some big badges to go through until we reach that 9 ISK, and even then, well, at 915 there's a little bit more in the waiting. So if we could chew through this, personally I would wait for that for the pyrite, and I'd be hoarding everything that I'm making, which by the way I'm doing a little bit as well. Now that the jihad on Orcas is announced as being finished, I went back out there, did a little bit of mining as well last week. Finally we've got Mexalon, which is what I focused on, and I'm not alone, so that is putting a little bit of pressure on the price of Mexalon, but we're still talking a price that's above 70 ISK, which is really good, and on the 1 year chart you can also see above average as well. 73 for the sellers, 71.50 for the buyers. Another sign to me that there is strong demand even for these high-sec minerals, not coming from high-sec but coming from just production, which I think is centered mostly in null-sec at the moment. And there might even be some preparation, of course, for the new faction dreadnoughts that are likely to be a part of the expansion, or you know, the parts from the launch of the expansion might be like, all right, this is everything in the works, but you need to win your races, your faction races, in order to get that. So those contests will become important, and I think Kaldari is sitting golden for all of that stuff. Moving on to low sec, we've got the Isogen chart right here that bumped its way up to above 400 last week, and then not entirely unexpected, of course, when all of a sudden you finally get that opportunity. A lot of traders in Isogen will have been waiting for the last couple of months, because we managed to do that in July as well, and you get a little bit of selling. But the good news is 20-day moving average continuing to go up here, so we're not back down below 400 ISK. We're at 434 for the sellers, 413 for the buyers, and from my perspective, again, we've got a little bit of the market trying to find its footing again, trying to find its new price range, because we get a lot of sell orders in the 4-5 million range. Probably a couple of sellers that are saying, yeah, it's not a good idea to put up 700 million Isogen in a single sell order. That's just going to create this problem. If you want to be able to ride the upwards wave, you know, have those prices slowly evolve up towards, for instance, here that 440. All those batches will sell on an upswing, and so a more careful approach is being taken here by the competitive sellers, well above 400 ISK, and then we come to 100 million that's waiting, but at 456. So I think that could be our next pin. It's only here for 25 days though, so that's an old order that's probably still hoping to get worked through, and then everything else feels quite okay. So I wonder how quickly we'll bump into that 456 from time to time and then chew through it. Then again, I think Isogen has room to go up even more, especially if now in faction warfare things are heating up as well. I think from those balance changes, low sec pirates, right, with bad standings or bad security standings are getting hit pretty hard as well. So that trading might be even more risky. Yeah, Isogen, Noxium, the low sec minerals, they could become quite interesting to get into high sec, and that could of course command a premium. I loved one of the comments when someone from low sec said, like, so now I really need to make alts in order to get anything out from low sec into into HiSec in order to trade it, because I'm a pirate with bad security standings. And then the answer was, yeah, you'll have to set up some legitimate smuggling routes if you're going to do that. So maybe you'll have to make deals with some other corporations or with nullsec or someone else. But I think it's going to become even harder to get Isogen and Noxium out from there, although not everyone minds there with the bad security standings, of course. So Noxium went up to 1,000 disc pretty quickly and is starting to lose ground right at the tail end here. 5-day moving average going below the 20-day moving average. 914 though for the sellers, 872 for the buyers. Not too much of a margin here, and the volumes are definitely doable as well. So I think here we went up a little bit too quickly for the Noxium market. Going from below 750 to 1,000 disc in just about a month is a little bit too quickly, I think, but will stabilize in all likeliness if we're looking at what Isogen is managing to do as well. Basically, I think really nice prices were finally spotted, and some traders, some people holding on to some Nox and some Isogen have found their way to the market. For nullsec, here is the Zydrine chart plateauing at 3,000 ISK. So 3,000 for the sellers, 2.8 for the buyers. So this is a completely different behavior, right? Usually at 1 year high points like here, you would expect a bit of a pullback because it's just too much for the market all of a sudden. For nullsec minerals, you have to remember this is largely in the hands of large organized group from nullsec. They have to do their imports as well. That means that they have really strong price setting power, and what's also showing that is just a narrow margin, 2968 to 2843. So that's like 120 ISK on something that costs 3,000 ISK to buy is a very narrow margin. It's because those buyers have no choice. Even at 1 year high prices, usually a big margin opens up and then you get a little bit of room to go back down. Nullsec minerals, especially Zydrine, that's not the case. We get there, nullsec says it's 3,000 ISK from now on, everyone easily follows, and so you've got this 1 week plateau already for Zydrine at 3k. Then we've got Megasite, slightly different story on this one because we did just shoot up to 3,000 ISK in 10 days or so from below 2k, so that is a little bit too much too quickly. So last week we were at 2,850, now we're at 2,650, so we lost 7% back here. 2,400 for the buyers though, they are very quickly pushing us up to 2,425. And as a result, I think we'll very easily stabilize above 2,500 here for Megasite. So nullsec minerals, extremely expensive at the moment, and yeah, no sign of this slowing down or changing or anything like that. Finally, we've got the Morphite chart that is recovering from that spike up to 40k. I would say that is good news for those that still want some cheap Take 2 ships. Like myself at this point actually, because of the heraldry system, but also a sign that, yeah, for moon mining, things like that, mining potentially nullsec, there's no real problem there, and we will still see oversupply in a lot of stuff, except for Zydrine and Megasite it seems, but a lot of stuff in nullsec that comes from mining is oversupplied. So 42,860 to 42,330, again, import from nullsec, super narrow margin, buyers have no choice, and now we get a really narrow margin because we basically recovered from the Morphite price. Next up we have the PI materials, 23.15. Like that, let's get started, and here are the broadcast notes. So to quickly reiterate my story here for the last couple of months, I was already very surprised at how well PI managed to hold on to decently good to high prices for a lot of these materials throughout the summer, where everything was about low activity, not a lot of players playing in EVE Online, and that was a sign to me that those that are still here, especially nullsec, they are in an arms race. They are building lots of large ships, and I think in the run-up now to everything that's coming with the expansion, there is some excitement that's coming in, and so here in September and October we actually have broadcast notes reaching 1 year high points, currently selling for 2.2 million. buyers at 1.9 million, where we were extremely happy with 1.5 over the summer. So this to me shows that there's a lot of production, a lot of demand for raw materials that does actually exist in EVE Online at the moment. And especially for PI, which is actually super passive, it is extremely high. So broadcast nodes, very, very expensive, made their way straight up above 2 million, 1 year high point. And if we can stick in this range, I think PI producers will be very happy. Construction blocks following suit after another very strong summer, above 10k for a couple of weeks in August as well. We went back below that, and look at this now. Second half of October, we're back well above 10,000 discs, definitely at the highest range again, 10,730 to 10,490. If that's not a sign of strong demand, then I don't know what is. Coolants, slightly different story, but let's keep in mind, above 10k was already really good for construction blocks, and we just made our way to 12,000, 13,000 on a couple of daily averages in September. That is of course an opportunity where even some people that are trading in PI, that are holding on to some coolant reserves, are coming in. And coolants are super easy to make. Gas planets are absolutely everywhere, and so for this decline to still end up above 10,000 disc with 11,000 for the sellers and 10.2 for the buyers, this is actually this is a normal good range for coolants. With a decent margin at 800 discs. So this is just, we're coming off from an extremely high range again over the last month or so. Enriched uranium then, right, October spike to 1 year high point, we're recovering from that, but most of the summer 10k, which again, really nice. Here we go, 13,000 discs now for the sellers. Not a lot of buyers, but they are willing to pony up 10, 12,000 for enriched uranium as well. So it could change quickly, I think, but and another sign here that we could see change in this sell opportunity very quickly, but integrity response drones that were actually the biggest winner of the Siege Green update that made the production of some large ships far more attractive, managed to make their way up above 2.5 million for most of the summer. And now for the first time in 3 months, we are below that at 2.4 million for the sellers and 2.3 for the buyers. So that's still a narrow margin, still really strong demand, but we are below that 2.5 million, which we haven't seen in a couple of months. Now there's two possibilities. Number one, there is less demand, which I don't think at the moment. But number two, well, this was the biggest winner of Siege Green update, and I think some players will have switched over to making more integrity response drones to take care of these, take advantage of these higher prices, and that's what's causing this decline now. So I hope I'm right, because I'd love to still see high PI prices for myself as well, of course. Then we've got mechanical parts, still again went to 11,250, so close to 1 year high point, and then we come down from that, but currently sellers 10,680, buyers well above 10,000 disc, strong demand, really good prices. Miniature electronics then plateau at 12.5 as well, so we're coming down, but still 12,270 for the sellers, 11.3 for the buyers. This is just a normal margin that has opened up between sellers and buyers at a really high price. The range is amazing on this 1 year chart, of course. Nano factories next, they are not really moving that much. Sellers at well below 900 at this point, 870, buyers at 827, narrow margin. There is demand, but we're not really able to go to like 1 million or anything like that just yet. Not everything can be a winner, of course. Organic motor applicators is a little bit better on the 1 year chart. It's relative though, 900k for the sellers, 815 for the buyers, so more normal healthy margin on this one, trading at the high range. Recursive computing modules, here's our October shock again as well, up to 1.25 million. Back down a little bit to 1 million, 1.1 for most sellers. Buyers though forced up to 1 million as well. So this could become our new range, whereas most of the summer was below 1 million. We could start moving above 1 million at this point. Robotics, 80k, 1-year high point, another very strong PI material, 78,000 for the buyers as well. That's another sign that there is still strong demand in the market. Rocket fuel, a little bit of an almost tradable pattern here, 11k, 12k or well above, and we're basically in the high range again. 12,800 for most sellers, 11,700 for the buyers, but again very expensive. Self-harmonizing power cores, slow plateau at 2.2 million ISK, very impressive chart for those that are making these self-harmonizing power cores. Of course, our smart fab units are at a 1-year high point for the daily averages as well. Could be the first one that, well, we get our first seller at 100k, which for specialized PI materials is a historical reference price for me. Even robotics, I used to sell those at 100k. So seeing this come back here on the smart fab units, 95,000 for the sellers, 100k coming into play, still 72,000 for the buyers, so it's a lot very quickly, and buyers are not just pushed up to a 90,000 buy order or anything like that. It's got tiny volumes as well, but another 1-year high point. So this does feel like at the moment we're in this super expensive and from that potential super strong PI market. Sterile conduits also obviously all over the place, but at the high side of the chart. 1.4 million almost for the sellers, very expensive most of the summer, right? Below a million, 1.4 now. Our supercomputers, really bad chart with some of these data points, but making its way to 100,000 ISK. There we go. Our first one is on the books. 100k for supercomputers, a specialized PI material that made its way back to the 6-digit price range. 71,000 for the buyers. They're still lagging behind, but I'm getting the feeling that there is something happening that's tied to the expansion. I would say my guess would be those new faction dreadnoughts are a force to be reckoned with. There will be demand for that. They'll probably need slightly different materials than the regular dreadnoughts, maybe some extra stuff as well, but they should put extra pressure on prices, because there will just be more demand. Players in Nullsec will want to produce these dreadnoughts, and so there's some preparation happening here. It's pretty much the only explanation I can say for all of a sudden a low volume specialized PI material to making its way to 100,000 ISK, 1-year high point all of a sudden. So it's definitely very interesting. Synthetic oil, same story, back above 10,000 ISK as well now. For refined PI material, historically normal price. If you remember the last couple of years, this is like crazy good all of a sudden. So even compared to the start of the year, a gain of 25%. Synthetic synapses, still very expensive as well. Oh, I was a little bit mistaken. So it's not the first specialized PI material that went back to 100,000 ISK, but this is of course a little bit different, because synthetic synapses have that used case that they're needed in implants, and so we can see that some of the CCP events have done stuff. Now they're also needed in some of the new materials needed for faction ships, so they have an extremely strong price range already, but that is partly because of course they have this unique use case in the economy. Same with the transcranial microcontrollers that are actually making their way up substantially to 110 for the sellers and 100,000 ISK for the buyers as well. So I'm considering these to be like a little bit different. You can also clearly see that on the volumes as well. This is completely different from the smart fab units making their way to 100k as well. So they're not the first, but the first of those that have, really lagged behind a lot, or with everything else, you could say. Water-cooled CPU, still above 5k, volumes up a little bit as well. 7.8 for the sellers, 5.5 for the buyers. They're still quite wary to go too high, but that's also quite a sea change if you look at this 1-year water-cooled CPU chart. And then wetware mainframes, slow but inevitably we are going up above 175 million, highest range of the year as well, and practically 2 million now for the seller. So those people that are making PI materials, I think you are looking at golden opportunities. Very, very high prices, lots of 1-year high ranges, and it's starting to even show through on some of those that have lagged behind for a very long time, and even some of our specialized materials are getting back towards 100k. So for robotics, we'll see where this one swings, but I personally am very curious, because then I might just go back to something that I've done before on PI. You can find, I think it's plasma planets, and then you can make robotics on a single planet, which for me is a very cool concept. 4 different extractors, 4 P1s and then 2 P2s, and then just one final facility that makes robotics, but that gives you a lot of time, right? Everything can run for a very long time and then get pushed into the robotics. If they get back to 100k, I think I might look into making some planets like that. Anyways, that's for PI. Let's move on to, well, what's probably going to be the reverse situation, advanced move materials at 35 minutes. There we go. Let's start with the carbide. So here is crystalline carbonite. Well, all right. We were coming from pretty close to 1-year low point, well below under this. Couple of data points above that now. So sellers have found their way to 110, buyers at 93. Is this the reversal? Well, I'm not sure. It could be, but it remains to be seen, I would say. Then we've got titanium carbides also, right, trying to form a little bit of a bottom here from those October lows, early October lows, to 125. 125 for the sellers, 125 also for the buyers. But will this last? That's the real question. I think volumes are already quite high here, and it's already starting to basically stop. Then we've got ferrite carbide for Minmatar shooting up all of a sudden. A bit of a surprise considering the massive nerf that the Munin is supposed to have. It does become a missile ship, which for me is pretty interesting. I love that combination. But yeah, 150 for the sellers, 110, 111 for the buyers. Definitely the first one where you get a completely different dynamic. All of a sudden, a price spike that we haven't seen in the last 6 or 7 months even. And then for Amar, it's terahertz meta materials. It's back below. Oh no, not meta materials. Excuse me, that is a mistake. It's tungsten carbide for Amar. Well, also a push up well above under disk, but again coming from a very low data point, 120 to 102 for the buyers. I'm still seeing hesitation. The only one that's really out of the ordinary here is the ferrite carbide one. That is quite substantial, and I would say that this might just be due to the market trying to anticipate the changes that CSP is going to do to the heavy assault cruisers and potential other rebalancings. Moving on to the metamaterials, let's see if we see something similar there. For Galente, it's photonic metamaterials. Yeah, slight downtrend, a bit more what I personally would have expected. We reached 7.5, supplies are coming back in. We're back down to 6.5 basically for the sellers. For Caldari, it's non-linear metamaterials. That 1-year low point even now touching 10,000 ISK all of a sudden. Buyers are below 10,000 ISK, sellers only just above that. Average price, you can see that yesterday below 10k, so there's definitely still some desperate selling for non-linear metamaterials. For Minmatar, it's plasmonic metamaterials. Actually, no, doing something completely different as well. 1-year low point below 10k. Even the sellers are at that point, and then terahertz metamaterials still below 10 as well. So for metamaterials, we're not going anywhere. We're super low. 10,000 is pretty much across the board. Even Caldari can't be the odd one out that commands a bit of a premium. We are oversupplied and at very low prices. So to give us that general feeling, we still have the other advanced move materials, so slight uptick visible on the chart here for fermion condensates back to 35k, but that is nothing all too special. Our ferrogel made its way back above 20k, and so this one I think will be interesting to see how quickly will this get crushed. My expectation is very quickly, but if I'm wrong on that, then things could perhaps start to move in a different direction in the run up to the expansion. Who knows? It is a possibility. I just think it's not very high. Fuller rights would then be a little bit more what I would expect. Again, made its way above 600 ISK, right? Back to a spike we haven't seen in a couple of months, but now we're already back down to 540 for the sellers, and so you can see that pressure right here from any opportunity to sell at better prices. Hypersynaptic fibers back below 5k. Nano transistors still stuck 2.5 to 3k, that's it. Phenolic composites a little bit better as well, so when above 1100 ISK, now sellers are already back down to 1000 ISK. And then we've got pressurized oxidizers back below 7.5, so back at the low end of the range. Reinforced carbon fibers back to 7.5 at the low end of the range. And finally ceramic fibers made its way back to 350. Also something rather unusual, recovering to a price we saw a year ago, but you can clearly see that the pressure was there right away, pushing us back to 250. A little bit of hesitation here, 300 to 280, but I do still feel like the general trend in advanced PI materials is going to be pressure, and any increases in price get discovered, filled very quickly, and we're still at a below average range pretty much across the board. Let's see for Take 2 though, because Take 2 has both the materials and the production cost component, but for me at least at 4020. There's also the heraldry component. Take 2 is very cheap at the moment, but you can spice them up with your Alliance logos. I think they're flown quite a lot as well, so that could have a little bit of an impact. Still though, Basilisk below 130, 125 to 110, that's still very low. We're not seeing that here. You probably also don't need that many of them, and I'm not sure if you need to trade specific ships, because there was on the test server, the heraldry system was tied to like an LP. So maybe you can like spam a single ship, get enough LP, and then buy the licenses for many different ships. So I'm still not sure how it's going to work exactly. But yeah, Basilisk still in that low range, nothing special to report here. Cerberus went back above 150. Crushed by new supply, so it's again very affordable. Buyers are at below 130, sellers at 130. You're basically grabbing a Cerberus below 130 million at this point, which is a very nice jumping point. Then we've got the Curse, made its way back to 150. Here is the supply. You can see 5-day, 20-day starting to cross here again. 124 for the buyers, so they're still down here. Then we've got Damnation. Yeah, did a little bit better for a couple of weeks here, made its way back to 280, which I mean on the 1 year chart is still terrible, and you can see even that is enough. Buyers are already back at close to 1 year low points. 241 for the buyers of a Damnation. Deacon, same pressure. I mean, if we see nothing special in these charts, I can go through this pretty quickly. Here's the Eagle, right? 1 year low point at that low range. If you're looking for that Take 2 investment, you get the Eagles going for 120 to 110. You're probably buying 113, 114, below 115 pretty easily. For the Eagle at the moment, 28, 14, 14. It's just gonna keep things crushed right here. So there's definitely possibilities for those that still want those really cheap Take 2 ships on the 1 year low chart. EOS, right, a little bit of a bump. Here's that supply. We're back below 250. I bought my EOS at 254, so a little bit early. To give you that perspective, here's the Ares. Smaller ships do a little bit better, bumped up to 50 million, but again, we're already down below 40. Buyers are at 36.5 million, going down quickly. Not yet the 1 year low point, so you don't want to jump in just yet, but give it a little bit of time, and you could see another buy opportunity. Flycatcher below 40. Another one that you can buy, looks very cool as well. Honestly, don't like the layout for like those flat Caldari ships for the heraldry system. So you get your Alliance logo like right here on top of it. Could be cool, of course, if you usually have your camera from a top-down perspective. But you know, in like videos, you want to see them come like this, and then you hardly see your Alliance logo. That's a little bit unfortunate. Amar has the best layouts so far. Here's the Guardian. Probably will get those at the front here as well. That looks so much cooler, in my opinion. So, for instance, for the Oracle, it was definitely that here you would have your Alliance logo, and then here you'd have like, or maybe the reverse could be cool as well, Alliance logo, and then here you have your corporation logo. I mean, that's the front of the ship, that's where you want your logo, I think, rather than right here on top or something like that. So yeah, from that perspective, from the mass test, I got that Amar ships have us all beat on style. But yeah, Guardian, let's keep going for the market stuff. Below 130, so still very cheap. Not the cheapest, but definitely not a wrong time to buy. Heretic, same story, landing on the 30 million. Buyers coming in at 30.5 million, so basically 31 for Heretic. It's not the best price, definitely the low end of the range. And then we got that Hound Spike, so that was tradable actually. You could have bought these at around 15 million, then you could have sold them above 25 million, but now we're right back down. At 17 for the sellers, 16 million for the buyers. Unfortunately, still a couple of buyers that are willing to keep us above 15 million ISK, but this is of course the pattern that we have been seeing, is that any of these opportunities to sell at better prices, well, there's plenty of traders, producers, players out there that want to take advantage of that, and then you get this completely crushed price in a matter of 10 days. And this again also confirms what I've been saying during this segment. If you're looking for actively trading in Tech 2 at the moment, look for the smallest ships, because they can move in big volumes, can be bought by big groups in big volumes, especially stealth bombers, for instance, and that's exactly what you are seeing here. Iquitursa, a little bit of pressure, a bit more spread at the tail end, but nothing too special. 500 million basically, and 460 for the buyers, quite a decent margin. Then the Ishtar, yeah, slightly better than a 1 year low point. That was well below 130 million, but yeah, 134 to 126. So just put in a buy order, you'll grab it, an Ishtar below 130, I think, without too much effort. I don't know the layout on this one. That could potentially be cool as well. Then we've got the Kirin, another frigate, which with again a tradable spike, right? By what would this be? Below 15 by quite a bit, and then sell at 25 again. Look at that spread here in the last week though, from 25 and then buyers down to 15 million. So we are now at 25 million for the sellers, 16 million for the buyers. Super high spread. I'm not sure why this is not getting plugged more quickly. I thought we would see more sellers take advantage of this, push us to at least to 20 million. I can see that we did that. Yeah, the Kirin, a little bit of trade potential in this small logistics frigate. Manticore, unfortunately, you know, you can't win them all, of course. Really stabilized over the last four months or so, and especially over the last 8 months. Now not able to break out above 20 million. So 19 for the sellers, not that many sellers, 16 for the buyers. So not the best time for this one. Nemesis did a little spike, 17.5, maybe tradable for the very low prices. That would be like below 13.5 or something like that. Margin has closed in between, so not one. I wouldn't make a move here. Nighthawk, slight uptick from 250, but really not much to see. Oniros, pretty stable and slightly above average, so you don't want to buy here. Purifier though, there we go, another frigate. You could have bought these for close to 15, 16 million, sold at 25 again. That's more in line with what I would expect with sellers, having crushed us back down to 19 for the sellers, 15 for the buyers. So these are those tradable patterns that we did expect in some of these small frigates. Of course, not all of them can move exactly this way. Here is the Rook, really low again as well, so if you want one, buy one now. 115, something like that should easily be possible. Saber, very affordable as well. Scalpel, there we go, tradable spike here. practically, I think, yeah, 10, yeah, buy for 10, sell for 17, something like that. 70% is easily tradable. And again, right now we are starting to come back down. Buyers still at 12.5, so have a bit of patience. And you may see a buy opportunity show up here. Scimitar, buyers below 100. Yep, 95 million. If you don't have one of these yet, definitely time to make a move. Sleipnir going up a little bit, but not able to break 300. Vagabond up a little bit as well. That could be tight. Heavy assault cruiser to the rebalancings here. So smallish trade, you could say, for the Vagabond. That was doable for a little bit. But I think unfortunately supply is going to crush us right back into the current reality. So even these high volumes pushed above 150. You even get a data point at 200 million, but then everyone is saying, hey, I got lots of Vagabonds lying around here at the moment, and so we are stabilizing super quickly. And finally we get the Zarmast. That's going up in price a little bit. Definitely not the lowest range we've seen, that was in September, but still not that expensive at 450 on a lack of supply, 400 million for the buyers. So for Tech 2 ships, still basically the same story. Look for those 1 year low points, for those buy orders where the chart looks like basically the opposite of this, when the daily averages are going down faster than the 5-day moving average. That's where you have a very high chance of picking up a buy order, buy close to 1 year low points. And if you're looking to trade, I would say focus on the smaller ships. I'm still just basically buying to get lots of different ships that I might plan to use later down the line or take a profit on at a longer term. Next up, the Tech 3 ships at 50.10. There we go. As always, we start with the destroyers, but that story is kind of boring at the moment. Basically, we lost a little bit of ground, but we are super stable with very low volumes. Here is the Confessor at 47 million to 43 million, so decent margin. I mean, you get that almost 10% going on there, but there's just nothing going on in the market in general. I think this is because part of the gas that it needs is now also needed in faction ships, and that's where the focus is at the moment. And Tech 2 is so low that the value proposition for these ships is just not good enough for the production costs that they have at the moment. Heckgate above 50 million, a little bit below, a little bit above, but hardly any movements. 51 to 47, normal margin as well. Jackdaw, you can see back above 50 million as well. Volumes are really bad, and the 3 million spread is very low. And then the Zweepel also lost that I'm cheaper than everything else phase, was finally through that. 54 million almost for the sellers. Any of them coming in here is going to keep a stable, a bit more margin at 46 million. It is less popular, but overall there was maybe like a tiny, I would say not even a trade to be done here, because the spread is still only slowly coming down a little bit. So we're gonna meet at 50 just like everything else. Tactical destroyers, unfortunately, not that interesting for trade at the moment. In the cruisers though, you may have seen that on the ticker already with the Tengu. Looks like there's a little bit more potentially happening there. So the Legion is going up. Daily average price is now well above 180. 180 for the sellers, 170 for the buyers. They have closed that gap as well. You can see that margin goes down. So a couple of days ago, no, maybe 10 days ago or something like that, 150, 155 purchase was possible. Now it looks like a 180 is possible. It's not a great trade, but there's definitely a little bit more volume and a little bit more volatility and spread in these ships. The Loki, right, same story. About 10 days ago, you could have bought these 165, should definitely have been possible, especially down here on this downward trend. You can even see a daily average coming in here at 170. It's going to be just below that, so 165 I think must have been possible. You're at 194 for the sellers, still 172 for the buyers, so you get a healthy spread, but you also have a little bit more volatility with sellers dominating the market, and sometimes buyers trying to dominate the market and at least partially succeeding in this. Here is the produce chart, the least tradable chart of them all. It is also the least popular of the Tech 3 cruisers at the moment. Made its way back slowly above 180. So maybe if you bought like a month ago at 150 and you can now sell at 183, you're looking at a trade. But this is definitely the slowest chart of them all. And I thought the Legion and then the Loki, being like a unique one that can be shield armor together, were the ones to look into, because that's definitely meta as well. But no, it's the Tengu. The Tengu is doing the first real breakout in a while for Tech 3 cruisers, but 1 year high point went as low as 180, or well below 180. In fact, let's see if we can get this to show. So you could have bought these late September for 160 million, and I think we noticed this during Eve Talk, and then now you can sell them for 220 million. There is your pretty awesome Tech 3 trade right now. Now this is not gonna last all that long, but there's definitely something more behind this than just trade waves or something like that. So I think that this will also be tied to the rebalancing that CCP is planning for the heavy assault cruisers. Maybe something is going to be replaced basically by the Tengu in a certain case or meta or something like that. But this is quite substantial, and you've got an awesome sell opportunity in the Tengu, especially if you bought below 180 during these weeks here in late September. You're looking at a nice profitable trade. Definitely jump on that occasion, then I would say, because a spike like that doesn't last too long and is not all that common. But there's that Tech 3 cruiser volatility. Very, very nice to see. I actually have a Tengu hull ready in Jeddah, but I think I'm going to keep it so that I can fly it. And then finally, we've got the extra product for the week, which this week will be the mining ships at 5510. Like that. So let's take a look at that. Ships, mining barges. Let's start with the Tech 1. Yep, here is the cover chart. Let's see, on the 1 year chart, we're definitely up from 37.5 to 50 million. Pretty stable at the high end of the range over the last couple of months, so not much to say. Here's the Procurer chart. Same story. Over the 1 year, we went up substantially. Actually, even in the last month, we went up to 50 million for the Procurer. It's at 56 for the sellers, 47 for the buyers. I think industrial margins here must be pretty decent. Well, perhaps it needs a lot of... does need a sizable amount of Zydrine and Megasite, so production cost will be up as well, but rather expensive at the moment. And then the Retriever should be somewhat popular as well. Yeah, above 50 million for the average price as well. So Tech 1 mining ships, 50 million, pretty expensive at the moment. Let's see what Tech 2 is doing. Okay, 180 for the Hulk, definitely the low end of the range. So here is the Tech 2 discount at the moment. Here is the Mackinac, used to be my favorite mining ship. Made its way back above 180, not gonna last too long, I think. Buyers coming in at 163. And then finally we've got the Skiff, also doing a little bit of a bump here. That's actually a sizable bump, potentially best bump in all of Tech 2 we've seen for this Eve Talk, bringing us well above 150. Sellers coming in at 170 for the Skiff. So for mining ships, even in Tech 2 we get slightly more expensive prices, but on the 1 year chart compared to Tech 1, that's still quite relative. And this really does show minerals. Tech 1 costs are pretty expensive at the moment, but Tech 2, and that's due to the moon mining part, so it's the Tech 2 production cost that must have gone down substantially if we get this type of a 1 year chart. For instance, for the Hulk, same story for the Mackinac, and the Skiff a little bit less pronounced, but still 300 million at the start of the year and currently going for 170 on the 1 year chart. That's still pretty inexpensive. We can take a quick look at a couple of others. So we still have the Orca we definitely want to look at. That's what I'm mining in at the moment, still above 1.5 billion. And potentially this is here the spike up to 163 due to an organized destruction that was happening of a lot of orca. I think they got over 100 of them, so it's pretty impressive. 1.6 billion for the sellers, 1.5 for the buyers. Capital ships still pretty damn expensive, but yeah, with these better prices, I'm selling my BPCs for the Orca at 5+ million at the moment, so there's definitely a little bit of demand here. We will take a quick look at the Rourke chart, but that's usually very bad here in JITA. Still, we get a little bit of data, definitely making a bit of a comeback back up to 5 billion. Can we get anything close to us? So here in LowSec, 4.7 billion, so pretty recovery after a massive dip here in August. Probably low activity, no one needing or willing to risk Rorquals in their mining fleets as support, or they've got enough for their numbers. Still, supplies for minerals and everything was quite fine, and then now maybe a little bit more activity starting to show up here in the fall, bring us back to the 5 billion. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we still have a couple of frigates as well that we could take a look at. Let's take a look at that. What would those be? Nope, that's trick stuff. Here we go. Ore. So the Venture for Tech 1 as well. Could be interesting. Very inexpensive, of course. Is it 300,000 disc at the start of the year? 420 at the moment. But again, a bit of a bump here in October in the price cost of mining ships. And the current range is definitely expensive. And then we've got the Tech 2 versions, which is advanced frigates. And these would be... Now I need to find them. How are they not here? Oh, expedition frigates. There we go. So here we get the Endurance, Tech 2, and again, close to the 1 year low point for the Endurance, and not the 1 year, well, getting close to that as well. Very inexpensive prospect as well. So in general, I think the trend is still the same. Tech 1 is expensive, and especially the Orca is a very large Tech 1 ship. Tech 2 is relatively inexpensive on a 1 year basis. It does mean that affording a Tech 2 ship is a lot more doable. I'm still a little bit worried about the jump in power compared to the cost that's happening at the moment. We have just seen it's completely drowning out, for instance, the Tech 3 destroyers. But let's see how things evolve. The expansion is looking like it could have quite a bit more in it than what we first thought, and things are moving lore-wise, CC test server wise, updates wise, so the couple of our next couple of weeks should be very, very interesting. And that will be it for this EVE Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.